This Independence Day, I want you to imagine something. Imagine the actual authors of the Declaration of Independence were sitting there at that function with you. If you look in the corner this 4th of July, you looked over there and you saw Rodger Sherman, you saw Thomas Jefferson, you saw John Adams, you saw Benjamin Franklin, you saw Robert Livingston, the 5 men that actually wrote the document. They were sitting there in the living room with you, or wherever the function might be, wherever the party might be. How would you feel? I mean, you'd be partying with the men that actually wrote the document, with these individuals that actually wrote the paper for the Declaration of Independence, forming this country, declaring sovereignty from the crown for the 13 states of the colonies. How would we feel? I'd probably look at them and say, we lost it. We really lost it, man. What can we do here? What answers do you see for us? I think what I would be doing is realizing that maybe we should be mourning all of the liberties lost from what they had created, from what they had originally anticipated for the country. I wanted to read some of their quotes for you, and I promise you this video will really be worth your time. This is just my opinion here of what they would think, but rather than just my opinion in the video, I want to read their actual quotes here. I put some of these individuals' quotes. When I say individuals, the actual founding fathers of the country and the people who actually wrote the document that we are celebrating every July 4th. This document went through on July 4th, 1776, and it declared our independence from the crown. So the first one, let's talk about Thomas Jefferson, who at first wasn't given the title of author of the document, but later on he was given that title of the author of the Declaration of Independence, and that he was a main contributor to the Declaration of Independence. So let's talk about him. Thomas Jefferson, quote, "Most bad government has grown out of too much government." I wonder what Thomas Jefferson would think about printing over $10 trillion and all of the money not being back to anything. And printing well over 10 trillion, maybe it's 15 trillion. We don't really know exactly the amount. I wonder how he would feel about that, and that the money is not back to silver and gold or anything. Another Thomas Jefferson quote, "When the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty." Do you think the government fears the citizens? I don't think so. I think that he would be very troubled by where we are today. Let's talk about Benjamin Franklin. "He who would trade liberty for some temporary security deserves neither liberty nor security." Have we given up some of our liberties for a little bit of security? Has that ever happened in the United States? I'll let you be the judge of that. Again, these videos are just my personal opinions. These are their actual quotes, but my personal opinions in this video, so disclaimer, could be completely wrong about the things I'm saying in this video. Disclaimer. Another thing Benjamin Franklin said, when asked what he thought of democracy, he said, "Democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote." Pretty strong words. Also, when Benjamin Franklin was asked, "What kind of government have you given us, Benjamin Franklin?" he said, "We gave you a republic if you can keep it." Now, a republic doesn't mean Republican, doesn't mean, Republican Democrat, doesn't mean all of that. A republic just means the individual people have their sovereignty. The individual people have rights that are given to them at birth. They are not given by a government. You, watching this video, you have the rights given to you in the United States at birth. And those rights were supposed to be under a republic. When you say the Pledge of Allegiance, do you say, is there any democracy in the Pledge of Allegiance? When you say the Pledge of Allegiance, you say, "And to the republic for which it stands." They made it that way for a reason. The other thing let's talk about James Madison here. James Madison is known as the founder of the Constitution. Remember, there is the Declaration of Independence and there is the Constitution. So the Declaration of Independence is what we are celebrating today on the 4th of July. It's actually, right now, it's about midnight and I'm at my warehouse working. I'm not out, partying or doing anything like that. I'm at the warehouse making this video for you to watch because I feel that this holiday season, it seems that we shouldn't be celebrating a holiday, and we should more so acknowledge what the holiday is about and who wrote the Declaration of Independence. What did they think? What was their vision for the future of this country? You know, I would be with everybody celebrating if I didn't know what I know. And what I do know is that I think they would be very troubled at what has happened. Let me talk about James Madison here. This is the considered the main contributor to the Constitution here, one of the main contributors, if not the main contributor. He says, "In republics, the great danger is that the majority may not sufficiently respect the rights of the minority." Another thing James Madison said is, "The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined." Few and defined are the roles of the federal government. This is the individual who actually wrote the Constitution of the United States. So instead of just celebrating and getting drinks and taking the weekend off and, saying, "Oh, I'm celebrating the birth of America," maybe actually study that document. Maybe study the 5 individuals that actually wrote that document. See what they thought. And from what I can read, and reading their quotes here, it would seem that the 5 of them, they proposed a republic. They seem to be very certain of that, and they seem that they did not want the individual rights of Americans to be infringed upon by the majority. So what does that mean? If the few who have somehow worked very hard and built their pursuit of happiness, you see, that's the problem here. The problem here that I see, and why I'm so troubled, and why every time the 4th of July comes after learning this information, keep in mind, I'm 27. I want to be out there and having fun and being at parties right now. Maybe I'm just an introvert and I'm taking it out here on a video. Or maybe I have some merit making this video. I don't know. Let me know in a comment down below. If you agree with me, smash the like button. If you disagree with me, dislike it and throw a comment why down below. Either way, I would love to hear from your point of view on this subject. They wanted each individual citizen to have rights granted to them by being born. Not granted to them by a government, but granted to them by being born. They also, under a republic, as James Madison said, in republics, the great danger is that the majority may not sufficiently respect the rights of the minority. See, this Independence Day, do we have a country that wants independence? Because that's a republic. Doesn't mean Republican, doesn't mean politics. It means, look up the definition of a republic. The definition of a republic is individual people have their individual rights and sovereignty. A democracy is where we elect officials who then can give us rights and give us these rules and these laws. That's not what we have, and that's why we don't say "into the democracy for which it stands" in our Pledge of Allegiance. We say "into the republic." So what I happen to think is, this day and age, we have a government that has gotten way larger than the few and defined rules, quote unquote, few and defined, that James Madison, the actual writer of the Constitution, had given them, printing trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars. The other thing is, we have a government that is pretty much running as a mechanism for dependence. We don't have independence right now. We have a situation where we have a country that seems to be dependent upon the government and growing more and more dependent on them. And that's scary to me. That's scary to me. JFK said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." Now we have everybody that feels entitled. We're part of this entitled generation where everybody seems to be just wanting to sit at home and collect unemployment, wanting to just get a paycheck, get a stimulus package check, the next stimulus package check. And it's disguised as this helpful thing. But little do all of us know that all of a sudden our gas is more expensive. All of a sudden the groceries are more expensive because they happen to print money. They gave us fish for a day and they took away our fishing pole. That's what happened. And so this 4th of July, I hate to be the bah humbug the Scrooge of 4th of July, but I beg you, if you're watching this video, I beg you to actually read the Declaration of Independence, to actually look up quotes from Benjamin Franklin, from Thomas Jefferson, and ask yourself, do these quotes align with what we see today? How would they feel? And should we be mourning this 4th of July, a Constitution lost? Because the Constitution was written in clean English. It's really easy to understand. It wasn't written in a different language. It was written in English. It's very clear. It says that the role of the government is few and defined by James Madison himself. However, the Supreme Court basically made it so that the government can do whatever it wants. And that's why we have a government that can just print trillions upon trillions upon trillions at will. That's why we have a central bank that does this called the Fed. It's actually not even part of the government. It somehow is its own entity, and that's a whole subject for a different talk. But it prints all this money and it gives out 0% interest loans to the commercial bank who won't even pay for the inflation that they created. They won't even give you an interest rate on your savings account to pay for the inflation that the banks, created by diluting the currency. The currency itself isn't even backed to anything like the founding fathers had wanted it to be. So this Independence Day, while we're all out there shooting fireworks and having fun and, and having some party, really imagine, ask yourself, what if these founding fathers were there? What if the writers of the actual Declaration of Independence, those who fought with blood, sweat, and tears, screaming, "Give me liberty or give me death," if these guys, all of the founders, were sitting there at the party? And now they had their flaws. At that time, it was a different time. But the framework, the design of individual liberties based on a republic, I hear all these politicians, "Oh, we're losing our democracy. We're losing our democracy." And I think to myself, Benjamin Franklin himself said that we have a republic. We gave you a republic if you can keep it. And we have these politicians saying, we're losing our democracy. Why is that term being used so loose? Do we know the difference between a democracy and a republic? And is Benjamin Franklin right? Did we lose our republic? Did he give us a republic if we could keep it? And did we keep it? Do you feel like your individual rights and sovereignty aren't being infringed upon? If you've done well, you see, in the United States, you're granted life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You are not given happiness. You are given the pursuit of happiness. But for some reason, we have this entitled generation that thinks that they can go to college and enjoy that luxury. You got to remember, that's a luxury. Not everybody gets to go to college. Not everybody gets to go down that route. Some people, are waiters. Little chip on my shoulder. And those individuals are being asked to pay the taxes to grant those individuals that had the luxury of going to college free college and pay for it out of their taxes. So are their individual liberties being infringed upon by having that debt placed on that burden placed on their shoulders? If they got ahead in life, if they worked really hard and they put their head down and they worked harder than the average individual in the United States, and now they're saying tax the rich more and more and more. Let's get further. Let's do a actual wealth tax. Let's tax your actual self and your savings. Inflation isn't enough. And your banks will give you no interest to compensate for the inflation. We won't even keep your ice cube frozen. But let's tax you further. And then when you pass away, let's make sure that tax is even further than that. So what they said, James Madison himself, in a republic, the great danger is that the majority may not sufficiently respect the rights of the minority. Is that what we see today? Because it seems the minority has gotten successful and the majority is voting to take away their stuff. The government was created to protect your rights as a sovereign individual citizen. That's what they were created for, as a republic, and that's why it says it in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you feel comfortable if you've gotten ahead? if they're after you and they want to create a wealth tax, and this isn't just for the Jeff Bezos, and by the way, the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musk, they're protected because all of their money is in stock. Excuse me. So if they don't sell their stock, there is no gains for them. So if you can raise the taxes as much as they want, but they're just going to leverage against their assets. They're just going to get loans against their assets, like I would with my Bitcoin. You can just get a loan against it and not sell it, so you don't owe any taxes. People wonder, how the rich don't pay taxes. That's how. It's very simple. They have their money tied up in assets. So now they propose a wealth tax. But what if you're part of, the people who are in the few millions? You got Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's worth, I believe it's upwards of $10 million between her and her husband who went to Harvard, asking you to pick up the tab for other individuals who went to college. And why don't you pick up the tab, Elizabeth Warren? Why don't you pick it up? Why don't you give up your $10 million? All of this going on right now is, in my personal opinion, disclaimer, because I don't want to, anyway, it's all there that everything going on today is, in my personal opinion, the direct opposite and exactly what these 5 men who wrote the Declaration of Independence, who fought for the independence of this country, didn't want. This is the opposite of what they wanted for the country, what's going on right now. A government growing so large that the people fear it. I know I do. I fear it so much I said disclaimer, I think 5 times in this video. So disclaimer, right? That's exactly what Thomas Jefferson said. When the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Ask recently, what did these individuals in charge say about the Second Amendment? Anyway, I think that these individuals would be disgruntled. I think they are rolling in their graves. I think they would be absolutely horrified of the things they see today. So as we all party, as we drink, as we celebrate on the beach, whatever we're at, watching fireworks, really think about what these individuals would think if they were there watching. They were in the corner. You'd want them to join the party, right? It's like, hey, we're celebrating you guys. We're celebrating you. You gave us this amazing life. And they would look around and go, what did you do? What did you all do? You let them print trillions upon trillions upon trillions. Your money's diluted and back to nothing. None of you have your individual same rights that we gave you in the beginning. All of a sudden, now they want to create taxes on top of taxes. You paid taxes on sales of... We threw tea over the harbor, and we fought a bloody war over this. And you're allowing all of this to happen? What's wrong with you? I think they'd be disgusted. And I'm taking a big risk dropping this video, but it's how I feel in my heart. And it's why I'm sleepless. It's why I'm here at the warehouse. This video, there is no advertiser on this video. This isn't endorsed by anybody. This is just me in my warehouse at midnight on July 3rd. Now it's the 4th. It's actually 12:15, so it's the 4th now. So technically, I'm making this video on Independence Day. This is my thoughts on Independence Day. And if there was, if the founding fathers, if the individuals who authored the Declaration of Independence were here, all I would say to them is, we lost our way. And can you help us? Can you give us some insight on how to get out of this mess that we're in today? What do you think of all of this? This is what's going on. Can you please give us some insight? Because from my understanding and reading your quotes, we've lost that republic, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. I fear them quite a bit. So what do we do here, guys? That's what I would ask. And I understand that they had their flaws. At that time, it was a different world back then. But I think that today, they would have changed the little things that are off. These are big, big things that are off. And I think the big, big thing that's off in the Constitution is that it says all men are created equal. But in today's day and age, you got to remember, these individuals were making the framework for the future of the country. And at that time back then, in 1776, it was a much different time. But today, the one thing, and somebody brought this up on my Instagram, and thank you for bringing this up because it's so true. He's from a different background. And at the time, there was there was racism. There's all kind of stuff like that going on. And I don't want to make light of that in any way. But I want to say that I think in today's day and age, the one thing that they would change about the Constitution, and to acknowledge that, would be all men and women are created equal. All men and women are created equal. As long as you have a beating heart in your chest, you're an American and you have your own individual rights as an American. And not only do you have those rights are given to you at birth. Not given to you by a government. They are given to you at birth. The government was put in place to protect those inalienable rights. And somewhere, somehow down the line, it seems that we might have forgotten that. And so I wanted to acknowledge that, which I think that they would acknowledge if they saw modern society today, and they would have realized, hey, it's wrong what we're doing here. I don't want to get too far down that side of it, but other than the extremely large flaw of not all men and women, regardless of race, regardless of background, or whether you're a man or a woman, are equal, and you all have your rights. And luckily, we have that message today. But unfortunately, the principles, the framework of that Constitution has been really damaged by the fact that the Supreme Court has allowed the federal government to do pretty much anything that they want. When they were created, in the original creation of the government by James Madison, he says it himself, the proposed delegated, the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. James Madison. And that's from the Federalist Notes. It's very, very crazy to think about how far we have drifted from what their original vision was. And I wanted to go over that in this video. Please let me know your thoughts on it. Maybe it changes your perspective of this 4th of July. I think now it's the 4th of July. Started this on the 3rd. Now it's the 4th. But yeah, I hate to be that humbug Scrooge individual on the holiday weekend, but I just want to ask you, are we celebrating independence? Are we really independent? Are we? Or are we a nation of dependence? Have we become a nation of entitlement? Is it still the land of the free, the home of the brave? Is it the pursuit of happiness? Or is happiness supposed to be just a given? That's what it seems to be. Because when people came to the United States, they didn't come here going, oh, wow, I'm going to get a free meal over there, a roof over my head, free health care. I'm going to get all this free stuff. People don't want freedom anymore. People want free stuff, and everything has a cost. I want to say this right before we end this video. Everything has a cost. Nothing is free. I want you to imagine it was New York and it was back in the days of the mob, right? Imagine you took some money from them. Imagine you wanted to pay that money back to them. Or imagine you didn't have enough money to pay them back. We're over, $30 trillion in debt now. Imagine you didn't even have the money to pay them back. Would you feel good about that? Would you feel like you had your independence if you took that? Or would you feel like you had a puppet string on your back? How would you feel? That's the analogy I like to make when it comes to all of this excessive money printing and everything going on. Is imagine you were in debt to the mob back in that time. That's how it feels. And people don't want freedom. They just want more free stuff. And everything has a cost. Nothing is free. So I'm not celebrating. I'm mourning because I know what this country could be. I know what this country stands for. I know what the founding fathers and the authors of the Declaration of Independence wanted. At least to my interpretations. You can make your own interpretations. Please do your own research. These are just the few quotes that I looked up, but look up Thomas Jefferson quotes. Look up Benjamin Franklin quotes, John Adams quotes. See for yourself. That's the video. That's everything I wanted to talk about. Sorry if it was a bit long. I hope that there was some worthwhile material there for you. Please do throw a like if you do agree, and if you disagree, please throw a dislike and say why down below you agree or disagree. I would love to have that conversation back and forth on, are we really celebrating independence? Do we have the country that they anticipated us to have? Am I completely wrong about my statements here? Please say in a comment down below. Thank you so much for being part of this channel. I'll see you at the next video. Signing out.